The following is a podcast that I recorded several months ago together with Yosef Bernfeld, known to his friends and family as Bernie. I met Bernie last summer when I was on tour in the U.S. together with the band Schlepping Nachas. If you haven't heard of Schlepping Nachas yet, I recommend you go ahead and check them out. Although it hasn't even been a year since I originally met him, I consider Bernie a very close friend. I've had the privilege of traveling with him, meeting his family and his friends as well, which is an incredible friend group, and I consider myself incredibly lucky to be able to tag along. Without further ado, here's my discussion with Bernie.
Growing up, you're told how you're supposed to be in this world, and how what you're supposed to look like. So to get out of that is very difficult, because everything you do, usually, again, I'm talking from my own experience, but it's subconscious already. You're just like, everything you're doing is like, is it the right way? Is it the wrong way? Is this how I want to be perceived by people, or is this not how I want to be perceived by people? So to get out of your head fully and be fully present takes a lot of work or a lot of drugs.
Well, even the drugs, they don't come without work, right? They just help you.
Yeah, you got it backfire later. Yeah, it comes with a lot of work.
I used to define drugs to one of my friends. He wanted a muscle. It was very hard to understand. I said, imagine you're driving a car, right? So you're the driver. The car is like your mind, right? Now the thing is, you've been picking up speed ever since you were born, very slowly. And you have no idea what speed you're going right now. And you know what? You might even not realize that you're driving in a car. So you might look out the window and think that everything else is moving around you. Right? You're not the one moving. Everything else is moving. And it's like, you don't even realize you're in a car. And you could chop you're in a car, but once you chop you're in a car, you also have to chop everyone else is in their own car, and they're going their own speed. Right? And it's like a whole crazy, and then I'm like, but how do you understand how fast you're going? Got to either slam on the brake or slam on the gas.
Very good.
And then you know how fast you're going.
Very good.
But it's a scary thing, yeah.
It's life. Somebody said the other day that somebody asked him, how do you define Breslov or Rabbi Nachman? What's the number one avoda of Breslov? So he answered it's to be your authentic self, right? So it's emes. It's about being real, being authentic, and coming to God with your 100% true self. Sometimes, so the guy responded, said, what, it's not about keeping the mitzvahs? So it depends where you are. If you have to know where you're at. And if it's time to keep the mitzvahs, then you got to keep the mitzvahs. If not, then you can't. If you're keeping the mitzvahs when you shouldn't be, then it's not good for you. And if you're not keeping the mitzvahs when you should be, then it's not good either. So the point is to be real, be authentic. But that's the avodah. That's the whole Likutei Moharan and Likutei Halachos.
That's the princess in the story, right?
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody over Shabbos about this because we was discussing how far can your intellect bring you? Can your intellect lead you all the way back to your purely authentic self? And I didn't think it really could, but I quoted the Rabbi Nachman story because Rabbi Kaplan in his Rabbi Nachman stories points out that when the advisor to the king, whoever it is, goes looking for the princess, so he brings these things with him, right? He brings a servant and he brings a horse or something, and Rabbi Kaplan says each one is a different aspect. One's the intellect, one's the emotions, one's right. But at the end of the day, he ends up he gets it done without any of them. He leaves them all behind.
Right, because it's more than intellect.
Right, whatever that means. So it's a very interesting concept, that idea of that place from beyond. The funny thing is that my friend I was talking to thought it was more of a leap of faith, and I was like, chas v'shal, I think it's more of an experience. You experience it, not that you thought it through.
It's both. I mean, it's the experience that comes from leap of faith. You have to have bittul. Bittul is a leap of faith. Bittul is saying, I don't know better. look, you can't always be in bittul, but bittul is a very big component of it.
But is bittul a leap of faith or just a realization that, like, in other words, what you were talking about before, that, everyone's been kind of telling you who you are and expecting you to be a certain person, even if they're not necessarily saying it straight up. But I feel like when you realize that Legami through and through, you realize that like you don't exist. Like Jim Carrey had this epiphany a couple years ago. Everyone thought he's nuts, but if you watch some of his clips, he's like, I've been acting for years. I had all these great roles, Jim Carrey, like a huge actor. But he's like, but the best role of all of them has been the Jim Carrey role.
Right. But that's the avodah. That's what we constantly have to get to it. But the point of bittul is to get out of your mind. Bittul brings you back to yourself. When your mind is going too fast or too slow, sometimes you got to just like duck, You got to get out of your own way.
Right. There's a big thing in a lot of meditative disciplines, that it's like when you're thinking too much, like as you're walking, you trip over your own feet.
Exactly.
They say also with music gear, if you take the microphone and you put it to the speaker, you put it back to itself, then it gets all staticky and choppy and it shrieks, right?
Yeah, it makes a lot of noise.
Sometimes
it's too much.
You start like, it's too much. So you just gotta. But again, I think at the point where you stop thinking, you can start like purely just experiencing, Like we could sit here all day, I could think about whether or not like who's thinking and where I am and where. The reality is I'm experiencing something, and if I can just sit in that experience, like that experience to me that's like the most real thing ever, Whatever this is, whatever life is, to me, like it's alive, Whatever that means.
Right. I think that in general, the work is to constantly be going from a leap of faith to knowledge, to a leap of faith to knowledge, to a leap of faith to knowledge. Because Nachman says, like, if you're going to only believe, then you risk believing in the wrong stuff. Right? If you don't use your brain and your own mind. If you're going to go only with your mind, then you can get stuck. You get stuck in your head. So the steps are that you try to, when you're at a new experience, you try to understand it the most as possible, and then you just got to, the last little bit is a leap of faith. And then once you do that leap of faith into something new that you don't understand, something new that it makes sense the direction you're going in, but it doesn't make sense the extent that you're going, then you get the idea of that. Once you did a leap of faith, then you get the knowledge of it, and it starts making sense. And then the next step is to have another leap of faith, and then it start making sense. So it's a combination of the two that you have to be rolling with.
Interesting. I was just thinking about this recently, the concept of like Nasa v'Nishma, right? Which is, right. The part, it's pretty much what we're holding at right now in Parshat Shavua. And that aspect of Nasa v'Nishma is really like a little bit maybe leap of faith, like the doing it, but then the Nishmas, and then you understand what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, and then you can kind of start over, I guess.
Yeah, very good.
Like what you're saying. It's also the way, like Stam, the way people are created, like the way we exist. Like, you're born a little kid, you eat, you do all these things, right? You go to the bath. No one explained to you. You just do it, and then eventually one day you realize, hopefully, like, I'm eating because my body needs sustenance. It gives me the energy and this and that. And then obviously at that point you can then reevaluate what you eat. You can then flip it around in reverse, and you can start over.
Right. It's a journey. The experience is a journey where you have the ups and downs and the middles and the highs and lows and life.
So for you personally, how much do you think you work with like the thought aspect, And how much do you work with the belief aspect? It oscillates between them? It's one and then the other, or it's kind of like more of a combo?
Depends when. I can go through extremes at times, you know. Now I'm getting a lot into my head, but then I'm forced to jump out of it because it's too much, you know. Sometimes I go just with faith, but it's always a combination. Sometimes I'm flying higher, sometimes I'm flying lower. But it's a combination, and the more, you know, as hard as you push, that's how fast it'll go. You pedal faster, but you need both. It's one after the next, like the gear and the chain, you know?
Right. I think what bothers me the most with people who only focus on let's say, you know, the belief aspect is that, again, I think like in the Nasa V'Nishma example, like the NASA is really there like to understand things. Like I was talking to someone when I was in America, and they said that it's very important to them to make sure their kids realize that you have to listen because I say so, right? Very important to realize, right? Because that's the way the Eibishter works, you know? You have to listen because the Eibishter says. And I'm like, for me, like, you lose all the, like, depth and, like, beauty and wisdom in the Torah by not wanting to understand it.
It's a very big topic because that school of thought is about people being holy robots, malachim, expecting kids to learn how to do it right, robotically, and follow along, right? But in reality, the reason why God created this world, okay, ready for a little shtickle Torah?
Always.
Okay. Rabbi Nassim asks in Likutei Halachos, Ribis. He asks a question. It says that when God created the world, when God wanted to create man, he went over to the Malachim and he said, okay, we want to create man. What do you guys think? So he has the different groups of Malachim saying different things. Shalom said one way and Tzedek said the other way. And there were four. I forgot. Shalom, Tzedek, maybe, I don't know. But anyway, one of them was Emes. And Emes says, don't create man. Why? Because they're full of lies. So he asks, and what does God respond? God sends Emes down. It says, Tishlach Emes Arza. And it says, later on, it says that Emes me'eretz titzmach, that Emes was missing something, but Emes me'eretz titzmach, that Emes is going to come out of the ground. It's not something that is up in the heavens. So God kicked Emes down and said, okay, now you're going to see what it's like. So the question is two things. First of all, how could Emes disagree with God when it says that Chosamo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Emes, that God's stamp is truth? So how is it possible that Emes would disagree with God? And the next question is, how is it possible that Emes would say such a thing when in reality we see that God created man? So how could, if it's truth, right, then how could he have not known, or how could God created man if Emes was against it? Right? We see in reality God created man, so how could it be that Emes would say the opposite? So he answers, and I'm paraphrasing a lot, but I'm going to try to be as accurate as possible. He answers that the reason why God created the world is begin the yishtamod lay, is that we should get to know God. And who is the ikar of the world? Human beings, Jews, Tzadikkim. That, how does someone become a tzaddik? By going down to the lowest places of Gashmias and fighting and using their free choice, their bechira, to overcome the challenges that come up over there. With their nisayon, every nisayon that they overcome, they experience a new level of God. So that's why it says, Sheva Yipol Tzaddik V'kam. The tzaddik falls 7 times and then he gets up. But when he gets up, that makes him a tzaddik. And that makes him closer to God. And malachim can't experience that because malachim don't go up and down. It says malachim only have one leg, right? One foot. Because they're not going up and down. They're just steady. They're just holy robots. That, in a way, that was a curse of the snake, right? Other Rishon like, we got our ups and downs. The snake has no legs. No legs, and is eating sand his whole life. Or everything he eats tastes like sand. What's wrong with that? He's always going to have food. But if you'll never taste a fat steak either. You'll never be missing food, but you'll never taste a fat steak. So same thing is with tzadikkim or human beings. Yes, we fall much lower than malachim, but that gives us the opportunity to rise much higher than the malachim. It says that the tzadikkim are going to be sitting in the closer circle to God, in an inner circle, closer than the malachim, and the malachim are going to ask the tzadikkim to teach them about God. Why? Malachim are with God all the time, right? Because they have a very dull experience of God. Very holy, but robotic. If you can't fall, you can't grow. So you can't really, they're not really experiencing God. They're like in a status quo. So part of that, the main idea of that is that how do you get to know God? With using and exercising your bechira, your free choice. So, jumping back to chinuch, you want to teach kids. The idea here is God gave us kids so that we can bring them closer to their tachlis, right? If their tachlis is to find God in the highest levels, then we have to teach them how to use a tool called bechira as much as possible. So not to take it away from them, not to take away the bechira tool and no, you follow, shut down your emotions, shut down yourself, and just follow, because then they'll never experience God. They'll just be maybe holy robots if they're lucky. If not, they'll be non-holy robots, but they're just going to be robots. In a way, it's like imagine it explains why kids rebel. In my mind, imagine you have a king. The king has a son, and the son loves ice cream. So the king gives the son a servant, right? And the servant always brings him the best ice cream in the world. Best ice cream in the world. Whenever the kid wants ice cream, brings him the best ice cream. And one day the king buys the son a birthday gift, an ice cream machine, an ice cream maker. So the king's son is trying to make his own ice cream. And he keeps messing up. The first time it's too salty. The next time it's too watery, because he's learning. And the servant's like, no, get rid of the ice cream maker. I'm going to bring you the best ice cream in the world. You'll never have to have bad ice cream. Right? But the king's son is like, hey, dude, my father gave this to me. I want to use it. I want to use this machine. I don't care how many times I screw up. But at least it's my father's machine. I want to use the tool that my father gave me to get what I love. So when kids are taught what to do, right, and the whole idea of listen to your people that are older than you, and you'll never make a mistake, and you just follow along what they say. Kids don't want that. Kids want bechira. They want to exercise their free choice that God gave them. So I think it's a big mistake for people to just teach kids to become holy robots. God has enough malachim. He doesn't need more.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, there's definitely aspects of that I connect to, and there's also an aspect that I think is interesting, where if you kind of like free them up to make their own choices, then I think your system will function better. Now, I would say quantity-wise, yeah, you'd have a lot of people that leave, but if you keep everyone there who doesn't want to be there, then you have to reduce the quality in order to maintain them all. Because if like everyone has to be in yeshiva, even people who don't want to be there, even the people who don't belong there, then what do we start doing? We start going on more and more field trips, and we start having more and more pizza parties and more ice cream parties, right?
You're
to
busier
me,
controlling them instead of teaching them.
right, but you have to do that because there are a lot of people there who don't want to learn, and you're trying to make them all stay, right?
Yeah.
To me, what's the derech of kinyan of Torah? What does Pirkei Avos say? Pas b'melech tochal u'may b'mesur tishte v'yalarch tishenu v'torah ta'amal. Now, obviously, I don't think Judaism is there to suffer. Now, certain people think it might be, but I think that's a very Christian concept, and I don't think you're meant to suffer. So what's the Mishnah saying? The Mishnah is saying when you want it so badly that nothing else matters, then you'll get it. When you're a real schlepper and you're like, listen, this is what I'm doing, and like, who cares about the food? Who cares about the where I'm sleeping? I'll sleep wherever I sleep. Like, what's the difference? What? Then that's when you'll able to really come to it with a passion and you'll get it because you really want it.
I'm gonna twist that on its head a little bit. When the Torah is so exciting and fascinating, then it doesn't matter what you eat. Food, bread, and water is enough. Sleeping on the floor is enough because that's not the ikr. So when you're connected, right, all you want is to be more connected with God. It's addictive. It's like a guy that's trying to get his fix. He doesn't care about food. He doesn't. When someone's in that mochin of, trying to get his next fix, nothing matters. They sleep on the street. You see, that's what, a lot of the homeless people and so on. It's the same idea. When you need your next fix of God, nothing else matters. You just need a little bit to sustain yourself. Which, yeah, I think in Mashiach time that Mishnah doesn't really apply.
I mean, it wouldn't apply as far as, in other words, I never think it really applies, as like necessarily what you should be doing. You know what I mean? I think it's like
the idea.
It's the idea. Like, all these things are really ideas. I was talking to somebody recently about and also when you force everyone to stay in that box, not only do you bend, you basically start bending the box, right?
Or bending the kid.
And you bend the kid, you bend the box. So the kid, obviously, I disagree with, but like, I feel like certain people who think that it's their job to like mold and like shape the kid, take it or leave it. Like, you can show them certain aspects about like the Vilna Gaon when he talks about chinuch lenar pidarko. He says, listen, everyone has like an innate soul, and it's gonna manifest whether you like it or not. He says if someone is born under a certain mazel that he should be shedding blood, was born under like Mars, Madim, he's the type of guy to shed blood. He's like, it's gonna happen. Either you teach him how to become like a shochet or a moel, or like it sounds like from the Vilna Gaon, he'll become a serial killer. Like, you can't stop a person from at some point like just being himself.
Right. You have to allow kids to be themselves, and I'll tell you even more.
In a healthy way.
Yeah. So I gave this example the other day. Imagine God comes over to you and says, Yitzy, it's time for Mashiach to come. And I looked around who can be the right person to raise Mashiach. Yitzy Fink, you're the right person to raise Mashiach. Now, you don't have to worry about it. He comes with all the tools he needs. He's going to end up exactly where he's supposed to be because he's Mashiach. And all you have to do is protect him for the first 18 years of his life, or until he's able to go on his own, right? And just be there for him. Whatever he needs, help him out. Help him figure out his tools that he came with. Help him learn how to use it, But you don't have to make him into Mashiach. He is already. Right? So if we looked at our kids that way, that would be like crazy. Like, I want to learn from my kids. I don't want to teach my kids. When my kids ask me something, I can tell them, I can guide them. But I want to see what tools they got. What tools does Mashiach come with, Show me more. And you want to create a platform where they can be themselves the most possible, so that you can see the wonders of this little Mashiach, And yeah, you'll guide them and show them. And if they're more interested in blood, so you show them how to use the chalif and the mila, whatever it is, or whatever you show them, you show them how to use their tools in the right way, but don't give them your tools. People have a mistake where they think that chinuch is shutting down your kids and giving them what I think is the correct tools. Nobody asked you, The guy told me the other day he didn't have kids for 25 years, and then he had his first kid, his only kid. And someone gave him a good piece of advice. And he said, one thing you should do as a parent is don't be mechanach your kid. And he said he followed that. It's 25 years later. He said it worked out pretty well. You have to follow the kids. See, kids are fascinating. God gives us kids with, I'm telling you, and the more you allow them to be themselves and you give them, it's like this guy doing his magic and doing his show, and you just have to feed in little things. Like I see with Yonatan, I feed him in little musical instruments. He's very musical, and and it's fascinating to see. And then other people ask like, "Whoa, he's 2? That's it?" Yeah, we didn't teach him anything. We just allowed him to be him. There's no special. You didn't buy any special packages to go along with this kid. It's just every kid is like that. I was building the Lego set with Noah last night. She's 3, and I allowed her to to see how much she can pay attention, be involved. She's a great builder. She looks at the picture, puts it exactly where it's supposed to go at 3. So it's shocking, but no, God gives kids tools. You just have to allow them to use it.
So I'm gonna play devil advocate for a second.
Go for it.
To a certain extent, do you feel like it's the pressure and the stress that comes from other people, which kind of also helps them figure out who they are? In other words, if no one kind of tried getting them to be someone else, would they realize 100% who they want to be? Or did you really realize who you are because everyone was telling you to be someone else? Then you're like, no, it's not who I am.
I'm not fully understanding the question. Tell me if I got it right. You're saying that I became who I am because I was pressured the other way? And that's
sort of. I'm not saying it as necessarily as an opposite. It's not like, everyone wanted you to be this, so you went that. It's everyone was pushing you to be this, and you went down that road, and you realized like certain parts of that like you felt comfortable with, and certain parts you didn't, and that's what let you understand that like, no, there's I have my own path.
So, 2 things. If you were right, then it's very risky. And if you remind me later, I'll tell you a story about that. Because most people don't break out. I'm unique that I broke out and I found my own way, or finding my own way. So,
and a lot of people break out in a very negative sense. Also,
yeah. And most people just end up staying and like shutting down the self, and just like rolling along and going along with the program because it's too uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable to leave. But why is it? I'm a survivor, right? Despite what they did to me, I'm going and finding my own way and all that. When you raise Mashiach, you're raising a whole new level. You're raising someone that's already at a much higher level. He doesn't have to undo the whole past and figure himself out in a better way. That's what chinuch is. We have 18 years of chinuch, right? 20 years of chinuch. The kid has to figure himself out. I only started after 20 to figure myself out. And I didn't start from scratch. I had to undo the first 20 years and then redo it in a healthy way. It's like, I'm still fighting to figure myself out. So it's like unnecessary. Yes, I wouldn't be who I am today without the stuff that I went through. That's not up to me. Let God take care of that, God. And I want to tell you another thing. My parents did the best they could. I think every parent is going to screw up their kids in a way that only they know how. And it's meant to be that way. Because you can't raise kids in a padded room. You raise kids in a padded room and they'll be spoiled brats. Parents are going to mess up. The world is difficult. Kids are going to go through what they have to go through. But with the awareness that I have, I want to give them as many tools to like overcome everything they're going to go through that I don't have to make it worse. There's enough that God's going to give them through me, enough crap that I'm going to give them because of who I am. And my parents, they were supposed to be who they were. And no parent says, oh, I'm going to, mess this kid up. But so I don't have to worry about that. It's going to come, but I don't have to do it lechatchila to take the kid and be like, oh, I'm going to put you into this pressure cooker so that you can bust out. It's like... Laser Lloyd told me a story of, I think it was Bruce Springsteen or I don't know, one of the singers from back then, said that his father was a drunk, like a Catholic or something, Catholic drunk, and his uncles and his grandfather and I don't know if they're Irish or I don't know where they came from or whatever the case is. And every Sunday his mother would take him to the bar. 7-year-old kid, take him to the bar, go call daddy, we got to go to church. And his father would wobble out and go to church. He would beat him and treat him like crap and all that. And he didn't like his father. He hated his father. The guy was a friggin' drunk and, Anyway, so then Bruce Springsteen has a kid. He gets married, has a kid or whatever, and his father comes knocking on the door. And he says, look, my grandfather was a drunk, and that's why I was a drunk. And, this is the minhag in our family. We're all drunks, and we're all, abusive and whatever. You don't have to take on that minhag. There's other things you can take on, other minhagim that are very good. But this tradition, don't take it on. It was not good. I screwed up. It was not healthy. Let's end that. And then in the end, he became, they mended the relationship. He became a good grandfather and so on. But at the end of the day, we don't have to abuse our kids so that they can fight back and become like a nice diamond. There's much more in store for us and for our kids. We don't have to worry that, what are they going to grow into if we don't, give them a fight. God's got that in plan. Mashiach needs to have much more koiches to be able to go into geulah than living in galus, We have to really raise mashiachs. We have to raise the next level, thrivers, not survivors.
Right, generational trauma. Did you ever, this movie came out last year, Hillbilly Elegy?
No.
Fascinating movie based on a true story about somebody who came from the hard South in the U.S., and his grandparents, it goes through the family history. His grandparents were... at a very young age, she got pregnant and they ran away from home because what would the parents say? And the guy had to go work in the coal mines. It's like a little teenager. And by the time his kids were born, right, he was a drunk working as a coal miner because he had no other options to feed his kids, and he beat his kids and he was abusive. And it goes down generation to generation. And then eventually, this kid is doing horrible in school because his mom's his mom is a drug addict. And the grandmother eventually says, you know what, this is it. Like, she chops what's going on. This is it. She pulls her grandson. The grandson had gotten into, a crash with the mother. The mother was drinking again or using. She pulls the grandson out of the home, and she says, you're living by me, and you're doing well in school. And he ends up, going to law school, and, it's a whole crazy story about, his own personal, mashiach, family mashiach,
What's the name of that movie?
And he's like a VC, Hillbilly Elegy.
I never watched it.
It was mamash. I heard about it actually from Ben Shapiro.
Oh, nice.
He spoke about it on his show originally. And yeah, based on a true story. J.D. Vance is the name of the guy. But yeah, that's on a certain level. I feel like that's what you're saying. So do you think, Agav, totally, is Mashiach also, we all each have our own personal, Mashiach, and then Mashiach's also a person, or...
I can't talk to that. I can't talk to that because I don't know. Based on what I've been taught, yes, but it's not something that I can discuss. There's so many. What is Mashiach? What's the concept of Mashiach? To me, Mashiach is about bringing the God consciousness to the world, bringing the awareness of God to the world. And there were many mashiachs. You know, Reb Nachman is a big mashiach, bringing God. The Lubavitch Rebbe. There's so many people. Anyone that has brought you closer to yourself and brought you closer to God is a little piece of mashiach. So it's hard to say, based on everything we've been taught, is it one person? Is it a bunch of people? Is it all of us, and then there will be one big one? I don't know. But one thing I could talk about is our personal mashiachs, that each one of us, really, if you're not going to save yourself, nobody's going to save you. People that are waiting for the Savior to come and you know, lift them out of Gullus, you know, and bring them to Israel, it's not going to happen. We have to take the little pieces of Mashiach that come our way, and then we'll get more. You know, we have to be our own Mashiach, and so just imagine a world where everyone's their own Mashiach and healing themselves and doing whatever they could to like bring themselves to a better place and the people around them. Maybe then there's going to be a big Mashiach saying, "Hey guys, let's do this." Like, but at that point, we're all going to be there. So I can't really speak to the general Mashiach. I have no clue.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating when I was talking to Simchi. I was talking about the Jewish concept. What I think like Judaism really started this whole idea of like what does it mean to me? Like what's my avodah, right? Like how do I fix the thing? And when you look through the Gemara about like why the Churban Beis Hamikdash happened, the Gemara says a whole bunch of this Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, and the Rabbanim didn't leave, and then there's on this and that. There's all these different aspects to the story. But I think what the Gemara is really trying to say is each person along the way helped contribute a little bit. Like imagine that Rav would have stood up. Like each person who didn't help solve the issue was part of the problem. And what happens when the Beis Hamikdash eventually gets destroyed? We don't yell at Nebuchadnezzar. We're not like, wow, what an evil guy, you know? Like, what Russia Marusha, right? And we don't yell at the Rebbeinu Shalom for creating him. We say, wow, like where were we off? What were we doing wrong? Me, not the other guy. What was I? But for some reason along the way, I feel like, I don't know, everyone grows up differently and everyone has a different experience, but I feel like what we did was we kind of blamed like it's like every group of Jews thinks it's like the other sect of Jews that are like, they're the flaw, like, you know, I feel like everyone's looking and was like, ever saw the poem online, like Mashiach's hat or something?
No what?
Mashiach's hat. You ever saw that? It's like a poem. You can find it online. I don't know who wrote it, but God bless them. Basically, Mashiach comes down and he like, you know, he walks into the first shul and he's like, "Oh, I'm Mashiach, right?" But Hashem finally sent him, and they're like, "Mashiach, dude, like you're not wearing anything on your head. Like Mashiach's obviously gonna wear a yarmulke." So he's like, "Oh, okay, I didn't chab." So he goes to this farm store, right? Grabs himself a nice black yarmulke, throws it on, and walks into the next shul. And he ends up in a Mizrahi shul, right? And they're like, "Dude, Mashiach's wearing a big knitted, like colorful, like what's that thing on your head?" Okay, so he goes out, he gets a big knitted, and he switches it. He walks in the next shul, and they're like, "Yo, where's your black hat?" You know? And then he goes to the next shul, and they're like, "Where's your shtreimel?" Right? And it just keeps going, and eventually he just gives up, and he goes back to heaven.
Or he comes, go camping. He's in the forest.
But
somewhere.
it's like sadly, you know, like these ideas of like, oh, it's them. In other words, your only question you should ask is what I played. Like, how can I be better? Like, if the problem is mixed dancing and you're not mixed dancing, then it's not, you haven't accomplished anything. Yeah. It's not your job to go yell at them. It's your job to.
It's also. I once asked somebody. I said, "What are you waiting for Mashiach for? What do you want him to bring to you? What's missing in your life that when you say Ani Mamin B'Cholim Sheyaveh, what are you waiting for?" So the guy told me, "Oh, we can go to Israel." So I said, "So go to Israel." "No, we can't go to Israel because Mashiach's not here yet." So Mashiach's keeping you in Golus. The concept of Mashiach is keeping him in Golus. Right? So it's the same thing. Right? So you have to make sure that you don't get in your own way. You can't be stuck Anyway, the point is, take whatever you want Mashiach to bring you. Take it. You have an idea of what you're waiting for Mashiach, go get it. And when we take all the little bits of Mashiach, we'll get more and more Mashiach moments. We have hundreds of Mashiach moments in our life, thousands. I'll give you another one. If we're talking about the overall prophecies of Mashiach's times, right? If everything that happened in Israel over the past 70 years would happen in 1 hour, everyone would say Mashiach's here. Am I right?
Yeah, 1,000%.
Right? If everything would happen...
I think so.
Right? If everything that happened over 70 years would happen in 1 hour, everybody would be like, oh my gosh, let's go, pack your bags. So all the prophecies that say when Mashiach comes and all that, it's happening. We're in the process. Now it's up to us to hop on the bandwagon. It's a spread out process. It's not people think it's a flash. Again, maybe it's going to happen, but in the moment that I'm in right now, I see that we're deep in the process of Mashiach, and we just have to really grab little bits of it. Whatever comes your way, grab it.
Wow. That's, some serious Torah. I think it's also, I was telling a friend of mine yesterday, like what you were saying, when you paint an image of how it's supposed to go down, like Mashiach's going to come and bring me to Eretz Yisrael, so now you're waiting for everything to fit to your image. It's a very dangerous idea. One of my friends asked me what I thought about something in the Torah, and I'm like, I don't believe in telling the Torah what it means. So
very good.
I don't know. And I feel like we do that a lot with the Eivishter also. We tell the Eivishter how he should behave and what he has to do.
Right, but I want to tell you something. It's true in a way, but you can't wait for it to happen. You have to make it happen. It's very fascinating. You think that there's going to be one Mashiach that's going to be able to deal with all the millions of people, and every person is a world in its own. If you start looking at people, sometimes you look at people like, whoa, every person is a world in its own with their own concepts and their own perspectives and their own everything. How the hell is Mashiach going to be able to deal with each person and give him what he wants? Because that's not the idea. The idea is everybody's got to be their own Mashiach.
He teaches everyone how to...
take what you want. It's a buffet. The world's a buffet. It's a smorgasbord. Go take what you want. No one knows what you want. You know what you want. Go take it. Or pray for it. If you don't know how to take it, pray for it. I saw this morning a great, I don't know where I saw, it's something like Hashem Mashiach or something. And I realized that the Mashiach that we're waiting for is God.
I want you to be my Rebbe?
Yeah, similar, sort of. The point is that we want, Reb Nachman says, Bishvili Nivra Olam, in Torah Dalet and L'Kutei Moharan, he says, what does it mean, Bishvili Nivra Olam? What, I'm special? And he says, no, it's a responsibility, that you're responsible for the whole world, but I can't fix the whole world. So pray for it. You can pray. Do whatever you can, and the rest, pray for. So I'm going to turn that to ourselves, right? So you want Mashiach, right? So I want the Beis Hamikdash to be built. So pray for it. Can you do something about it? Do something about it. You can't? Pray for it. Can you go to Israel? Go. You can't? Something's holding you up? Pray for it. But at least want it. Keep wanting, keep praying, do something about it, and you'll get it. And that's geulah, and then you can slowly inch over to geulah, slowly, step by step.
Right. I think the answer is we don't really want it, or we don't really believe in it.
We're scared to want it. We're scared of what it means to want it.
That's also true, but I have this shita that you can't really give over belief to somebody, and you can't give over ratzon either. These things are beyond there's nothing to give over, right? Now they can be they can be picked up through just being around. You're being around someone who has a lot of energy. You can get energy, but he can't give you energy. You can vibe off of him maybe, in his presence, but it's almost weird to me sometimes when I'm really thinking about things, or if I'm tripping, right? That you teach belief. There's no such thing. You can't actually teach belief. All you can do is believe. Now, if you're I could teach you in theory if you believe what to believe. That I can in theory do. And when people come to the place where they're doubting belief, and everyone's telling them, it's a famous story with some, I don't know if it's a true story or not, some mashiach, whatever, is giving a shmooze on Amun Bitachon, right? And then he realized what time it is, and he's like, whether there's a brain shalom or the yad or nisht, madaf daven in mincha, right? To somebody who like breaks out of the box and he starts thinking and he's tripping, that's the most ridiculous story. Like, he doesn't respect that. You know what I mean? Someone who's like questioning and this and that. He's like, you're what do you call it before? You're a robot. You're an absolute robot. So al pi Kabbalah, really, you got to dig all the way in there and find that princess, find that belief, find that nekuda, find that. Rabbi Kaplan, we're going to go back to Jewish meditation, right? Rabbi Kaplan says that the meditation, you can dig all the way down. You try to understand, like, who am I, right? He has a chapter on the self, okay? And he says, we say, right, my body. So if you're saying my body, that means there's an I that's outside of your body. The I is saying, this is my body. Okay, so who's the I? But he's like, but using that logic, you also say my soul. So there's an I that's so heilig, it's even above soul. And he says, what's that I? In Hebrew, I is ani, aleph, nun, yud. He said, if you rearrange the letters, you get ein. You get ayin. He's like, that little drop of self it's nothing. It's like, it's pure energy. It's alikus. It's the chelek elokami mal. And he's like, when you get in touch with that little the pintala, pintala kuchibrichu, then you can interact with it. You can like talk to it, and you begin a dialogue with the Rebbe of all Rebbes. You know what I'm saying?
Someone once told me. Someone asked a friend of mine, said, "What's God to you?" He said, "Myself." So it's scary to say, it's apikorsis, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. We have a little, it says in English you say, I have a gut feeling.
Right.
In Yiddish, gut is God.
Oh, wow, I never thought about that.
Yeah, so if you think about it, it's like our gut feeling is a little piece of God inside of us.
Yeah. Carl Jung, he was a big psychoanalyst. He post-dated Freud. He talks about this, like that little, from a psychoanalytical, from like a scientific, perspective. And they asked him, there's a recording of him, they asked him, do you believe in God? And he has like that look in his eyes and like the smiles like a real Rebbe. And he's like, I don't believe in God. I know there's a God. And it was like, it's such a trip. Because it's just, if you really understand that the deeper inner workings of the human psyche, to him, that's like the unconscious, the divine, Adam Kadmon, right? He has a whole, he has names for it. And he says every spiritual tradition is really teaching that. And just, we don't even know what we believe. That's what, because we don't understand the words. We're like missing the message. I have a shita that Jesus was had this same ha'ara, right? And obviously, if you look through the Gemara, all the Rabbanim, they were all bringing people back to life. They were all doing crazy nisim. It wasn't a big deal, anything he did. But the difference is he was doing it for the Hamoinam, the people who didn't really understand what was going on, maybe. Right? And they held the Yidden, that this is meant for Kabbalah is meant for the highest neshamas and only the best students. You don't teach Kabbalah to the masses, right? And he said, "Now I'm going to teach it to the masses." But when you teach Kabbalah to the masses, some people don't understand what you mean. They say, "Wait, you're God?" And it backfires. Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, the other nish.
I recently asked somebody about Jesus. I asked. I got a really cool response. He says, let's not look at him as a whole entity, black or white. Look at the things he did good. Look at the things he did bad. And every person in life, even your biggest Rebbe or biggest role model or worst person, there's things you can learn from him, good, and things that you can learn from him that are bad. Did Jesus have certain things that were good about him? Yes. Is he completely good? No, I think he has some things that are misguided. And I think so is with everybody. There's no like. The second you lock yourself into one box, you're done.
Definitely true.
So
are you familiar with the steel man, though?
The downside of someone that believing in only Jesus is that he doesn't believe in himself. It's like I can only get to God through Jesus. So you're limiting yourself. If not, if Jesus only brings you closer to God and helps you get closer to yourself, then good. The question is, what's it doing for you? What is the belief in anything, in any Rebbe, in any, in anything, whatever you're believing in? Is it bringing you closer to yourself? Is it bringing you closer to God? Good. Is it limiting you? Then it's avodah zarah.
Right. For sure. I believe, you know the concept of a straw man and a steel man?
No.
So there's this concept in debating, in like philosophy, where very often you'll be arguing with someone and they'll represent your side in the cheapest possible way, right? And then they'll prove that they're right. Right? And it's called in debate a straw man. Like you're being cheap. Like it's a logical fallacy. It's not really what I hold, right? In other words, you can take any version of anything, any version of belief. In other words, we could say people believe that God is a man in the sky, and if you look up at the sky, you'll see there's no man. It's ridiculous to think that, right?
Right.
Now, Shamayim, it's not talking about this sky, right? And at no point do we think anyone who really thinks doesn't think that God is a man in the sky. Anyone who thinks. There are plenty of people who don't think, right? But that is called like a straw man. You're building up, and then you're knocking it over. And then there's a steel man where you come up with the best possible understanding. Like even this guy doesn't even chop. Like what's pshat in, what does it mean? And you just dig deep. Like you could do this with like systems. Like with especially like take the yeshiva system. You could have this whole theory like what Reb Aaron was trying to do and how he's saving people, right? Or you could just say like it was post-war and he just wanted to have a couple rabbanim and he threw together the yeshiva and it spiraled out of control, right?
Right.
So, but we don't really know. So I like debating and whatever. I like building up the steel man. Like, let's say that, like, let's imagine. Is it true? I don't know. I don't know who Jesus was or wasn't. Let's imagine he was the most heilig. Like, the most. Let's imagine, right? Okay. But was everything he said, like, MS? Let's pretend maybe even everything he said was like, he mamish believed it. Okay, but was everything he said true? Right? Or, better yet, was everything he said communicated, like, was it passed down correctly? So for me, it doesn't really bother me to think that he was, like, so, I don't know, because there's so many different versions of who he was. He did exist, didn't exist. He died this way, he died that way. There were probably multiple versions of different people who all had this mashiach consciousness. I don't think it was one person, right? It was a ton of people, and society never knows what to do with these people. These people who are get up and they're preaching, revolution and this and that. You can all save yourselves. But the question is, when it got passed down, did it get passed down correctly? And I think you clearly stated that, like, if you think you can only come through him, then there's something wrong with that. It's just not, to me, that's not emet. That's just not true. But Alan Watts, who was one of my favorite philosophers, he says that was never the message of Jesus. The message of Jesus was, you have to come through the self, through the I. To come through the I. And when the people were listening, they heard, oh, we got to come through him.
I hear. It's a good Torah. I like that.
And like, you missed the ganze boat. Like, you're not supposed to be me.
That's
you're
like,
supposed to be yourself.
That's like saying, that's like by Reb Nachman. It says, Reb Nachman said, chinuch kamani lohayim ha'olam, right? And he means each and every one of us, chinuch kamani lohayim ha'olam.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And yeah. That's the funny thing with communication is that, like, sometimes we're giving over, like, is just not what's heard. And I think a lot of the flaws in the systems, it's all this lack of, like, communication. Like, you're giving... And, like, I remember once I used to staff trips for like, Kiev trips to Eretz Yisrael. I did birthright trips, stuff like that. And I was talking to this person once who was, not familiar with the religious world. And we went to the Mir together. And he walked out and he's like, isn't it so nice that, like, people are so like disinterested in like dress that they all just wear the same thing. Like, who cares? And I'm like, alternatively, if they wear a colored shirt, they'll get kicked out.
Right, very nice.
But like, but I that could have. In other words, what if the first generation Ki'ilu who like wore white was like, I want to be like the Rosh Hashiva. You know, isn't that Halig? In a way, I think it's very Halig. Like, I want to be like the holiest, like this Yid over here, right? And you wear what he's wearing, right? But you get lost in the authenticity and in the being yourself, and then you create a whole religion on suddenly what you wear is so important, you know?
Yeah.
Based on that, it's like the nails, right? The nails story. What the Rebbe cut his nails after the mikveh. You know that one?
No.
The Rebbe cut his nails, and the Hasidim saw him, and they said, "L'chayr, you should be cutting your nails before you go to the mikveh, right?" This and that. They went to the Rebbe and they asked him, "Rebbe, what's?" And he's like, "I don't know if I can tell you, whatever." They're like, "Please, yeah." And he's like, "You know what? You spend a week this week, you know, it's fasting and praying and studying Torah. You come back to me, maybe next week, maybe I'll tell you." And, you know, all week they come back, and he's like, I don't know if it was another week, you know. Finally, they come back, they're right to hear the shot, and he's like, you know why I wait till after I shower and I go to the mikvah? He's like, because that way my nails are softer.
Very good. Yeah.
And we're all just here, like, just creating all this, like, that was never the intention. He was doing his thing, like, what? So we create, like, this whole understanding and structure off of, like...
It all comes back to just finding yourself and being connected to yourself and not looking outside for anything. That story itself is just because people want to know what the Rebbe is doing, because they want to be like the Rebbe or do like the Rebbe. Be like yourself. Be your own Rebbe. You know, Kutchabrichu, be your Rebbe. People are afraid to be in touch with themselves. It's scary. Not, you know. There was once a chassid goes to his Rebbe, and he says, I want to go, this current story, he says, I want to go to Uman for Rosh Hashanah. So the Rebbe says, why do you have to go to Breslov? By us, you know, in our Chassidus, everything is smooth, everything is great. In Breslov, it's like this, you know? You know, so the idea is, when you're going to look for yourself, it's going to be a lot of ups and downs. You're going to try to connect to yourself and, you know, try to be authentic. It's a lot of ups and downs. It's a roller coaster.
But at least
if you want to become numb and you want to be a robot, that's this. You know? But that's
saying you're dead.
What?
You're saying you're dead inside. You're saying you're dead inside. Like,
yeah. That's what it is. Life is the ups and downs, and we have to realize that it's good. The ups and downs are good. You know, try to appreciate the ups and downs. It's good. It's tough, but it's good. Also, this week's parsha in the Kutei Lachas, he writes, God only gives you what you can handle, which means he says, I forgot on which pasuk. I think when the Jews went to Mara and they had bitter water. Anyway, he says that when someone wants to come close to God, there's gonna have to be bitterness, because you're going from your old bad ways and trying to come to the good ways. It's not, you know, you're gonna have to deal with the consequences. You know, if something
it has to be like a bittul.
It's more like if something went. Let's say, let's put it this way: if I'm building a building, I'm not following the instructions right, so I'm building it sideways, right? You're gonna want to fix it and make it straight. You're gonna have to undo a lot of crap. It's a lot of work. You got to undo it and straighten it out and rebuild it, right?
Right.
So he says that God only gives us the consequences that we can handle. which means he saves us from the rest of the consequences that we should have gotten based on our past. So when a person tries to connect to himself and connect to God and start this journey of finding oneself, and it's scary, you should know that God will only let you deal with the bitterness that you can handle. The bitterness is necessary because that's growth, and that's how you're going to grow and how you're going to become close to God and close to yourself. You really, if someone has been covering up 30 years of trauma and he's going to want to uncover it now and work on it, if he's going to open everything up at once, it's going to be scary. Very, very scary. He's going to run away. Doesn't want to see it. So God only reveals one small piece at a time. And then you realize it's so painful, and you think, I finally overcame it. I was 3 months of cleaning out some old trauma, and I'm good. And then 3 months later, God shows you another piece of trauma. You're like, what? I thought I was cleaned up. No. But you don't have to be afraid, because God's not going to give you everything at once. Because you can't handle it. He's only going to give you what you can handle. So, talking about God or ourselves, so we don't let ourselves see more than we can handle, but you got to start somewhere. You got to start, using God as your Rebbe.
Yeah. There was an interesting, it reminded me of this story that Carl Jung talks about, where he was treating one of his patients. This guy came in, a young guy, whatever, and what he would do is he would analyze their dreams. He held our dreams are our subconscious speaking to us. And that's kaviyachol, like the Eibush descending, that's the
message. Yeah.
That's the message. So it's your deep subconscious letting you know, like, where you're at, what's up in your life, So, which is like, whatever, a whole different, But, so he said this guy, he was talking to him, this and that, and he couldn't really lay a finger on what this guy's, like, trauma was, what his issues were, and this and that. But he saw the guy was clearly progressing. He was getting a little better and a little better, a little better. So they kept working, they kept dealing with it. And he said, like, a year and a half later, whatever it was, 2 years later, I don't remember exactly. If you read the book, Man and His Symbols, I don't remember exactly what the time. But the guy walked in, and he's like, he just spilled everything. He's like, okay, so here's the story. This is what happened to me. This is my trauma. This is what I can't get through, and this is whatever. Shkoyach. And, like, this doctor was like, what just happened? And he's like, pretty much, the whole time I really knew what my issue was, but, like, I wasn't comfortable talking to you. You know what I'm saying? It took me like a year and a half, 2 years to really get comfortable with you. And now I'm finally ready to face my issues. And, like, toda, and these are all the issues. I'm like, we're going to work on them.
Yeah. It's a trip. It's a trip. It's scary. That's all I can say. It's very scary.
Here's a question. Is that fear something, is that we're born with, or is that something that's taught to us? Whether on purpose
Fear
or not,
facing
conscious
ourselves?
or subconscious? Yeah, yeah.
I don't think it's taught. I'm trying to think. The fear that...
When I say taught, I don't mean... let me give you an example, kind of, right? Everyone sees something a different way, right? So, imagine we're all, we're both looking at this, right? An envelope, right? Now, if you're sitting across from me, right, you'd be looking at a different side right now than I am, right? In other words, if I look down right now, I am looking at a different side than you are. And you tell me what's written, and I tell you what's written to me. And then you yell at me. Look closer. You're not looking close enough. It's not what's there. So I get scared of and I start, every time I start, what's on this side? Right? I start twisting my neck and trying to understand what you see, because what I see is wrong. I got yelled at for what I see. And now I'm afraid to see things from my perspective. And now I'm just trying to be you. Because if I would just be you, then I wouldn't get yelled at.
I think that's the definition of trauma.
But that trauma then creates a fear of that it's going to replay itself. Right now I'm afraid of...
So that means you're operating out of trauma. When you live based on that, it means you're operating out of trauma. And so, so that is a taught thing. I mean, if you're, this is the way I see trauma. We have a little us inside, right? I have a little Bernie inside, you have a little Yitzy inside. If kids are allowed to be kids when they're kids, so they're good. They don't need to, they're good. As they grow up, they're fine. But if kids are threatened or forced to shut down as kids, so the little Bernie runs into its cave. So let's say little Bernie's out there having a good time, and he did something that was wrong, right? Or broke something, and somebody comes and screams at him. He's like, crap, goes inside. And then he ventures out again and runs around, starts da-da-da. And someone screams at him again, runs back inside. Now, in all different events and different scenarios, this keeps happening. Each time the kid runs inside, the kid it's like an unresolved issue, okay? So that's a trauma. Now, as adults, when something comes up that's similar to what happened as a kid that forced us inside, it triggers us, which means it awakens that little kid, and the little kid can handle it. And he gets in the way of us as adults acting in a mature way, or the way we should be. So he makes noise and makes us do things that we really don't want to do as an adult. It's subconscious and we don't really know it. But that's usually we operate out of that. Now, if we have a lot of unresolved voices, then when something happens that triggers us, those voices wake up and don't let us think straight. And it comes up as all different, the anxiety or OCD or depression or whatever it is. It comes up and takes over. If you give it space to exist, if you give that little kid space to exist, then it doesn't, it's no problem anymore. It doesn't bother you anymore. So those little kids are very scary to us if we don't know it, if we're not comfortable with it yet, before you start doing trauma work. But those little kids are very scary. You don't want to, it's like sometimes, there's some people you don't want to get into an argument with because the guy's going to go nuts on you, right? Or
right.
You don't want to, some people just better not to stir the pot, right? So that's our little traumas inside that we're very afraid to address because it looks really scary. But the crazy thing is, the second you address it and you allow it to be and you give it space to exist, it's not scary anymore. It deflates. It's like just a big, scary thing that just just needs space to exist.
So you reminded me again, he doesn't use the word little kid, but Jung uses the term shadow. Like the shadow, because he's talking about the parts that we think are problems, right? The shadow or the animal or stuff like that, right? And the animal's also more the emotional, the animals just do things on their own, right? And he says primitive man must tame the animal in himself and make it his helpful companion. Just learn to work with it. That's like when we're kids, kind of. But he said that civilized man must heal the animal in himself and make it his friend.
Oh, very good. I like that. It's interesting because I believe that this is what Reb Nachman meant in Torah Aleph in Likutei Moharan Tinyana, where he talks about malachim. He calls all, again, this is my interpretation, but the way I see it is he calls all the voices in our head malachim. And he says that we have to be in control of our malachim. And he goes through a 14 or 12 or 14 step process, and then it's very deep and very fascinating. But the main thing is, he says, we really have to, we have to be in control of our voices, the good ones, the bad ones. The more good things you do, if you look at it that way, it starts making sense based on the way we were taught as kids, what malachim are. Every mitzvah you do creates a good malach. Every aver you do creates a bad malach. it's just different voices in our head that tells us if we're good or if we're not good. If we do more good things, so then we have more good voices and it feels better. If we do more bad things, now we have more bad voices. And he says that the goal is for us to be in control of our malachim, which means not to operate, not that our voices operate us, not to operate through our voices, but to operate despite our voices. And the voices can help us, right? But we have to really be on top of them. They're working for us. Malachei Hasharis, right? They're working for us. They're here for us. They're not here to control us. It's like, it's also, you know, when we come home Friday night, we say Shalom Aleichem. I always wondered why we say Tzeischem L'Shalom. Why are we sending them away? If they're so holy and they're Malachim, why are we sending them away? But I realize it's like, imagine you have a king that's sitting in the palace and his kids are playing outside. So he has his servants watching the kids, right? Making sure nobody hurts them or whatever it is. And then the king says, okay, we're having a dinner in the house. All the kids should come. So the kids come and the Malachim, the servants, stay by the door. Because now it's time for you to chill with the king himself. You don't need Malachim, right? So that's why we send, by the Friday night meal, we're going to go sit with God. We don't need the Malachim here. Malachim, please stand by the door. Thank you. Thank you for blessing us. Thank you for bringing us home from shul. But now, wait outside, because now we're going to hang out with God itself. So we really have to use our voices for our advantage, not operate through our voices, you know, not let them be in control of us. We have to be in control of them.
On a simple level, you could say it's like your body, you know, your body and your head. Like sometimes our body can experience, you know, trauma, and it puts your body can have a reaction, like an automatic reaction, and then it freaks you out. Like if someone shocks you sometimes, someone jumps out from a dark corner, right? Your whole everything, your head didn't even have time to process who it was. He's a friend. He's this or that. Like your conscious mind wasn't even there yet. But everything can like freeze up and trigger you, and your heart can go a million miles a minute, and you shut down, and suddenly you're a mess for the next couple hours. And it was a friend of yours. You know what I mean? It wasn't even like, yo, achi.
Exactly.
But sometimes, you know, the body takes the better of our mind, and then sometimes, you know, if you understand all the meditations maybe and breathing techniques, you can take back control and be like, relax, chill out, you know.
Yeah, you need to have the awareness of that. You know, recently we've started like a Vasikin thing on Shabbos where we sit and shmooze. So one of the things we do is before we bring up a topic that would trigger someone, we say, okay, you know, is it okay that I trigger you now? So, because if you have that awareness that you're about to be triggered, you don't have to become defensive. You know, you can like, oh, okay, what does this bring up for me? You know? So, lately I've been, you know, trying to approach life in that way. That when something triggers me, to be one step ahead of it. And be like, oh, okay, this is triggering me now. Let me see before I go into defense mode and attack mode and da-da-da, you know, to be like, what's coming up for me now? You know, and process it.
Yeah. That's huge. I had a very interesting experience this summer. I don't know if I told you about it, but I was in America. I was zocheh to go cross country. And I had all these different plans. They kept changing. I was going to go with this friend, with that friend, with someone from Eretz Yisrael. And they flew
this
back
past summer?
This summer, yeah.
Right, in between Shabbos Nachmu and Vermont?
Right before I drove. I don't know if you know this, but I missed the Friday gig, Shabbos Nachamu, in Muncie.
Oh,
because I got back. I left L.A. on like my trip. Like the end of my trip was Muncie for the Shabbos Nachamu gig. I guess you don't know because I didn't know you. That's when I met you. That was the end of my trip. Okay?
Wow.
So on Monday, I was still in L.A. by a friend of mine that Monday. And then I drove to visit my cousin in Vegas. And then I guess that was Monday night. I slept by my cousin. He's like, he runs like a like a house there for like Israelis, people to like come chill. Just like he's like a super cool, like laid back rabbi. You know, studies a lot of Kabbalah. Like very cool, very like spiritual family. And his wife and this like his 3 kids, I think, and super cool. He's actually like a 4th cousin of mine, but we ended up somehow becoming chavrusas in the mirror because he wanted to learn English and I wanted to learn Hebrew. And then I was joking. He was like from Bnei Brak. I was teasing him like, yeah, I have a cousin from Bnei Brak. He's Rosh Hashiva. And I told him who it was, and he's like, that's my uncle. It was like the funniest. The whole thing was like such hashkacha. The whole thing was crazy. Tuesday, I get a phone call from a friend of mine from Camp Simcha. He wants to chill in Nashville. So I drove straight from Vegas. I drove straight to Nashville. It's like a 20-hour trip or something ridiculous. I made it there in time Wednesday to go out. And then we stayed Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday night, I left and drove straight to Muncie from Nashville. Like, we took a quick stop.
Wow.
Like, stopped on the side of the road.
How long was the drive?
All the way from LA or from Nashville?
No, from Nashville.
From Nashville, it was like a 14-hour drive. We left at like 3 in the morning or something, 4 in the morning. I don't remember. Like, we were up Thursday night. We were like up most of the night. And then we drove straight to Muncie. I got there just in time for Shabbos. And then, Matzah Shabbos, I met you for the first time. Kind of.
Nice.
Really,
That was a good time.
You know? So, but on that trip, people were coming and going. Like, I basically spread the word. I posted on a couple, like, websites. Like, anyone want to join me? You know, chip in for gas. Yalla, we're going to L.A., right? We're stopping off. I had a whole chevra, Israeli chevra supposed to come. They flew back to Israel because they were going to close the borders, quarantine, COVID, this and that. They booked. I ended up at a camping Shabbos, and I told everyone, I'm like, listen, I'm going. Whoever wants to come with me, you're all welcome. Whatever you want, I'm going either way. I already, like, worked myself into this thing. I'm going. It's my avodah. Whoever wants to come, come. So I met one person there, and we started talking, and it was, like, the most amazing, like, deepest, like, wildest conversation, like the most, like, the holiest soul. Like, wow. Such a crazy conversation. And then I'm like, I'm going, whatever, and like, can I come with? Like, I was like, yeah, for sure. What do you? Anyone who wants to come, come. Anyhow, little did I know when I met them, they were on like a combo of like mushrooms and K. When the trip started, they were still on K. And then like halfway through, they decided that they're going to stop. All right. They're going to like, they're going to take a little break. And our conversations just crumbled.
Oy vey.
It was fascinating to me. It was fascinating because, like, with the ketamine, they were like so above everything. Everything was like, I can discuss it, no problem. There's no triggers. Everything's like theoretical. Everything's conceptual. And once they were off of it, I was very triggering because I'm like a very intense. I like digging into the kishkas. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's.
And while they were on the K, it was like Gewalt. I was having like the best time ever. And then after that, it was just I was just more and more annoying.
Oh, that's a great story.
But it really helped me it was really crazy to me. I had to like try. That was actually the first time was on that trip that I tried ketamine, and it was mainly just to like try to understand what was going on because like I was so confused,
That's a great story.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I have to edit certain parts of that out, but
no, it's a great story. I'm just stuck in that. That's awesome.
But it was definitely, to me, it was like mind blowing. I ended up like, I also tried microdosing for a little bit. I read a lot of like neuroscience on what ketamine does, fight or flight. Fascinating. Like it separates certain aspects of like the mind, kind of. So like where you relate things, usually like if you had a bad experience at a certain place, second you go to that place, your body right away is clenched up, and it separates the experience from the place. It pulls out the baby from the bathwater,
Interesting.
And what you said about the malachim reminded me also of this line. Let me Google it quickly. Different people, exactly unclear is exactly who it's from. Maybe Roger Ebert or something. But there's this line I've heard in like philosophy that humans are the playthings of the gods.
Okay.
And it's this idea that like the original like pagan like gods, like what was that concept? What did it mean symbolically, right? It meant that like there are these concepts. Well, we call them malachim because we hold that there's only one God, right? It's all real yichud, right? For a yid. But there are these concepts, and often those concepts, love, war, whatever, often they control us way more than we control them.
I was just speaking about, I think that this is what you were talking about. I was just speaking about that with someone on Shabbos, and he called it midos. Those are God's midos, not malachim. The different aspects of God. Make sense?
Yes, I'm just trying to think if there's a difference. You know what I mean?
Right. I know, someone was just telling me that there is the reason why people are against Kabbalah, or some people are against Kabbalah, because in Kabbalah, they separate the midos, whereas other people say just go directly to God, right? All the different kavanas that you have when you daven, that, you break down God's midos. And so other people say just pray directly to God. Why separate the midos? Anyway, I don't know. It's just what I heard yesterday, something like...
There's Rabbi Kaplan, back to Rabbi Kaplan, right? Actually, I have this fascinating book on prayer called A Prayer to the Infinite. And
what?
You go through A Prayer to the Infinite is the name of the book. And it's a likud. He just brings down different opinions on all these different aspects of prayer. And it's such a fascinating book because the range of thought and opinion, it ranges from like, if you daven to malachim, then you're absolutely Ovid Zara, to like, unless you're davening to malachim, there's no way that your tefillah is answered. And like,
say it again, unless you're davening to malachim, what?
There's no way your tefillah is answered. Like, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it ranges from like, you need an intermediary to like, intermediary is total Avodah Zarah,
Right.
And with almost like every aspect, every chapter of that book is like another idea, like davening to dead people, right? Davening. One person says, "Chas v'shalom, we're davening to dead people. We're davening there at that place because it helps us connect to a certain aspect, right?" And some people say, "No, he's kilo the melech yosher," right? It's such a fascinating, like the range of thought. I don't know how you understand what that means conceptually. Like I don't know, like. I'm more than okay with saying some people are wrong. You know what I mean? That doesn't bother me. But again, like...
So,
yeah.
Also this week's parsha says that the Jews took out Atzmas Yosef from Egypt. Reb Nassim says that the bones
Atzmos,
of a tzaddik... What?
Atzmos, not atzmo.
Yom Atzmo.
So you can say it's the atzmos as opposed to saying it's the atzamot, They took out some aspect.
The atzamos. The bones.
Yeah.
He says the bones of a person that when he was alive, his whole life he dealt with bringing people closer to God and bringing them back to their shorish, which is back to himself, sort of. When he dies, he has the same koyach after he dies. And he says that's why we go to kever of a tzaddik, because the tzaddik helps you get back to your shorish, to yourself, which is back to the beginning of the conversation of being authentic.
Right.
And
now,
that's
and
how
that
you can,
place,
right?
is there something about being there, or is that just... It's easier to like get into the vibe, like the famous story about the girl who went out to the forest to daven, right? And her father asked her, I think it's like a Breslov story. I think, "Father, what are you going to the forest for? Like, the Eibush is the same in the forest; he's the same here in the city." And she said, 100%, but I'm different in the forest.
Yeah, very
I'm
exactly.
better in the forest.
It's a great story. But it's funny because in Kutam Tinyana, he says that what was the godless of the Beis Hamikdash? He says, I can tell you the exact words, because it could be controversial, but let's see.
If it's really controversial, I'll clip it out and I'll put it at the beginning of the video just to get people hooked. You know.
No, hold on. Yeah, here. It says, "Rak mach l'shahaya sham dvarim noim ki beveis hamikdash hayitzura de'uvda de'breishis v'tzura de'gan eden al kein himshich l'sham kedushasu yizbarach." It says that because there were nice vessels and nice pictures, and it was set up right. So basically, we set it up as a Beis Hamikdash. That's why God was there. So that's why when we, make a shul, so that's why there's more Ashras Ashchina there. And we make a bathroom that's more a place of Tumah. It's because we set it up this way. So it's kind of like set and setting, Beis Hamikdash was created as a place to facilitate the best of all trips, to like bring you to yourself. So you want to know if there is something about the bones of a tzaddik mamish there is because of set and setting. It's exactly like your story with that girl.
There's I think a Gemara that when Shlomo Melech finished building the Beis Hamikdash, like he tried getting the Shechina in Ki'ilu.
Really?
And he something like that. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, and it was like until he was Masker Shem David or something like there's some kapitel I think that was attributed to him to try to channel the Shechina in. Mashu kazeh. It's like now you have a kli, but we still need the iris.
Right. It's interesting because I was thinking about before I learned this. I just learned this last week. So before I learned it a couple weeks ago, I was tripping that. When they say, you take mushrooms or any psychedelics, it's very much about set and setting. So it's sort of like the iris, the mushrooms is the iris, and you need to have good kalim to be able to process it, Wherever you take it, that's what's going to be, whatever your surroundings are. So I figured that the Beis Hamikdash was just the best trip facilitating place in the world. You had the Levium playing beautiful music, and the Kohanim were doing all these things, getting you going. And as you walked in, whatever was going on there helped you become present and helped you connect to yourself and helped you be able to become vulnerable and open up and do tshuva and so on.
Yeah. So it should just be that place of pure spirituality, acceptance, like everyone came, and even cooler, more accepted version of Uman,
Yeah. Well, it depends at what time. There was a time in the Beis Hamikdash where people were nuts. There's a story in the Gemara of the Kohanim that were running up the Mizbeach. One guy stabs the other, and the Gemara says that. That's not even the crazy part. The crazy part is that I think I'm saying it right, that the guy that was laying on the floor with a knife in his back, his father comes over and is questioning whether the knife is still kosher or not. Like, your son's dying there, and he's like questioning halacha of...
Yeah, you lose touch. Listen, it's probably the same concept of losing yourself in, trying to copy, not really understanding what the point is.
People today are sacrificing their kids for their religion. You have a kid that's dying, emotionally, mentally dying, and you're busy with your halachas, it's like, it's a similar concept.
Yeah. Jung says it, the way he says it is that we never really understood what we lost because our spiritual leaders, unfortunately, are more interested in protecting their institutions than in understanding the mystery that symbolism represents.
Was Jung Jewish? Was he Jewish?
I think he was I think he was actually like Austrian, whatever, Actually, I believe I read that during the Second World War, he was a spy kind of for the Allies, letting the highest American government officials know the psychological makeup. He was writing a psychoanalysis of Hitler during the war and sending it to the Americans, like Hitler's current mental state. Tuesday the 15th, right?
I'm looking it up online. So,
but what you mentioned before, this idea of like of the Yid, like again, that's the symbolism. The Yid is a symbol. The Jew is a symbol of the enlightened individual. The same way Mashiach is a symbol of, right? It's supposed to be. So like, so he sounded. I mean, if he was actually at a level where he's saying, "I know there's an Eibishter," he's mamish, like, you know, like for me that's like bechinas, you know, like atar saladas. You know, like
right.
It's like a crazy bechina.
I wonder here.
Now, obviously, he's not a Yid. He's not a Yid, so he doesn't have the mitzvahs after that, right? He has Shav Mitzvah Noach, which I would believe that he kept. It sounds like from listening to him, you know. So like, he can be like Mamish Tzadikkim U'Sa'olam, like without a like this like crazy high level. Like according to a lot of Pshatim, Eov wasn't Jewish. Obviously, we know Bilam was talking to the Eibishter. Like it doesn't. Nebuchadnezzar was talking to the Eibishter. Like for some reason, we have this idea contrary to our own faith, like our own belief, that like being like holy in a spiritual sense comes together with talking to God, and then not holy means you have no connection to God. But you can have the highest connection and be an absolute like horrible person, is my understanding. And I really think for me, when I give people an example, I kind of say that like this level of talking to God is kind of like being higher up in government, chas, you know what I'm saying? Like kaviyachol, right? In other words, like the president of every country can interact with all the different presidents, and the Rebbeinu Shalom's kill like the Melech Malchei Amlachim, right? But obviously you could be a horrible president and you can be an amazing second grader. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think most second graders I know are better than most presidents, because, you know? But
they're definitely more authentic.
I think so too. Like working up in a spiritual sense is having more of a idea of the Eibishter. The more of a idea you have, the more power you have. But that doesn't mean you're using it for good reasons. You can know everything and use it to ruin everything, or you can know everything and use it to nurture.
Right.
If you really understand the system, you can strengthen it. Imagine like you really understood a car from start to finish, right? You mamish understood. So you can make it the best car ever, or you can make it looks amazing. You just snip the brake line, you know?
Right.
It's knowledge. Like haskell via dosi. There's a certain aspect of yedias, you know, Chabad. That's like the Chabad idea, the concept of like, you know, the closest. How do you get close to Hashem? Kind of like they say Hashem is knowledge, right? Into a certain like the Rambam and Nevuchim. The more you know about Hashem, the more you understand, the more in a way, the closer you are on a certain level. But that doesn't mean that you can't be the rebellious son. You can be the closest son, and then you can do the worst thing ever. You know,
right? But a lot about God is also an experience. Like, okay, we discussed this earlier. That it's not just the knowledge. I mean, knowledge can lead to experiences, but
I think the experience leads back to knowledge also. It's like you were saying before, it's like the back and forth.
Rav Nachman says, Ani Adaiti ki gadol Hashem, in the beginning of Sichas Haran. It says, Ani Daika. Like you said earlier, you can't teach somebody about God, because God's an experience. You can't even teach yourself about God from one day to the next. You can create a platform. You can teach a platform. You can teach a platform of where someone could experience God, but you can't take an idea from yesterday and, you know, it's not going to inspire you the same way today as it did yesterday.
Right. I had this interesting thing. I don't know. I'm surprised I didn't mention it earlier, actually. But over Shabbos, I was having the most gewalt conversations. I was in Yerushalayim with all the schleppers, except for Skili, who's my Rebbe, by the way. Skili is my Rebbe. I was talking to Track, and I was like, you know, on a certain level, like the studying of Kabbalah, like the theosophical, I think, aspect of Kabbalah, the theoretical Kabbalah, as Rabbi Kaplan puts it. Rabbi Kaplan says Kabbalah is split into three parts. There's the theoretical, which is like the Olamos and this and that, and then there's the meditative, right? And then there's the practical, which is kind of like a white magic sort of thing. So in this theoretical, where you're like building up olamos and that, really what we're doing is we're trying to hand you like a blueprint, trying to give you like a map of reality, right? And they take it out of the Torah. They extract it. This is mamish, the deeper teachings of the Torah is this map of reality. But there's one thing that the map never comes with. And that's the little X that says you are here.
Ah. Very good.
And that's why, according to Kabbalah, like there are certain things that you only teach someone who understands on their own. Because unless you understand you are here, you don't know where you don't.
Right.
The map is theoretical.
You
don't know how to read the map. It's irrelevant. So this is a theoretical map, but okay, it's who cares if unless you know where you're standing. Klum. It doesn't help you. It reminded me a lot of the beginning we were saying, but yeah. But how do you understand, you are here? What's the first thing you need for that? You need the you. Tachlis.
Yeah. But I also find like the more I learn, it's just like tools in a toolbox, Fill up that toolbox. One day you'll never know when you have to use which tool,
It's a really good mashal. Yeah. Yeah. I wish to a certain extent, like I was talking to someone about like the yeshiva system, And like obviously I don't believe like at this stage of my life, at a certain point, I obviously believed in like full revolution, anarchy, like tear the systems down, right? We've all had those stages, but now I'm like, listen, unless you have a better system, leave that one in place. Like, what's your, what's the big, right? What's the point in like tearing the whole thing down? I don't have anything better to put up there, like sababa, right? You're not doing anyone a favor. But what I do really wish in the yeshiva system is that they would a little bit just like hint at like these other terrorists. Like imagine they wouldn't, instead of bashing, all these different tools, instead of bashing, everyone standing there saying they're too from, they're too this, they're too that, right? They're too happy, they're too whatever. Just say, listen, they have a mahalach. This is our mahalach. I'm not saying their mahalach is wrong. Maybe that will work better for you, but Devaila, you're in this yeshiva, this is the way we're doing it. You know what I mean?
It's interesting because, okay, so first of all, I would say, in a way, it would be better if the system burnt down so then we would be forced to rebuild it. The problem with that is also that, how do you know it wouldn't be rebuilt the same crappy way? So it's like, so we're back to what you said, that don't knock it down until you have something to replace it with. I say, like, thank God they didn't teach me Likutei Moharan in yeshiva, because then I would have nothing to learn. But so in a way you do want to show them, but in a way if they're the ones that are going to show it to you, then don't taint it. You're
saying it's like the parent being mechanech their kid kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Let it happen. I don't know. Truth is, I don't know. I can't. That's why
it could
sometimes
be. What
you
I
just
found
say,
a lot.
What?
What I find a lot is it's kind of like the straw man idea, right? Is that what happens? In other words, when the system tells you, listen, every other system is garbage. Ours is the only good one, right? One day you realize their system isn't good either, right? And they were just a little stickle full of themselves, and they didn't really understand who you are or what's going on in reality. There's a big disconnect between the parents and the children, right?
Right.
Which is going to be solved by mashiach. We're going to solve that generational gap. When you solve the generational gap, you can have a true Torah. Like we can really talk about what's really going on, right? And it probably also, now that I'm thinking about it, from having this conversation with you, it probably also means that little kid inside the cave.
Right.
We're going to heal
kid
the
inside
inner.
Will start teaching you.
We're going to heal the inner child. And you're going to learn from him, and he's going to learn from you. And it's going to be this beautiful relay of information. But what I find is that like when you tell me everything else is garbage, then I realize your system is garbage too, I'm just left empty.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like you were saying before, like these kids are like, they have so much, and they like imagine you channeled all their energy, but instead we take away everything that they thought what they enjoyed, we take it away from them, right? Like I was in a yeshiva that was so extreme that like you weren't allowed to play music during the week. You know?
Only on Shabbos.
Only on Fridays.
Oh, okay.
Only on Fridays. I got my guitar taken away at certain points.
Wow.
So generally that wasn't enforced, That wasn't enforced, but that was the official mahalach of the yeshiva. As if music is something that you can connect to. Only that way you can go back and learn better, right? It's like we have bein hazmanim now. We created this bein hazmanim, right? Well, bein hazmanim. What does that mean, right? But again, this has to do with trying to justify the system and keep everyone in it who doesn't want to be there, right? This is Moshe Weinberger's speech to a large extent, right? But part of the bein hazmanim is we created this klipa because what's distance from the Rebbeinu Shalom to a certain extent is in your head, right?
Right.
So if we tell you you can't, where is the Eibishter? What's the famous? Is it a Kutzker? Where is the Eibishter? Wherever you let him in, right? But if we say, oh, but he can't be here. This he doesn't approve of. This he doesn't do. The Eibishter's not here, so we kick him out. We kicked him out. We're megarishim, you know, like you're not welcome in this spot. So if you say the Eibush is only in the Beis Medrash, then to you he's only in the Beis Medrash. You can't see him anywhere else. And Chassidus is mamish afuch. Chassidus is the Eibush is mamish everywhere, and we're building a deer b'tachtoidim. Mazet tachtoidim, the tachas of the tachas.
The opposite.
You know.
Sometimes the one place where the Eibush is not is in Beis Medrash. Because then it becomes avodah zarah. If you teach that the Eibush is only in Beis Medrash, then it becomes avodah zarah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. People think that Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. You know what I'm saying? Like we destroyed the Beis Hamikdash. He just came and he knocked down the stones. What was in the stones? By the time he got there, nothing. We took the whole neshama out of it. You know, like the kid who commits suicide was already murdered. That's the way to say it.
Very good. Very good.
You know what I'm saying? We're all standing there thinking that they killed themselves. No. Someone already killed them, and now they got rid of the goof also. And Rav Moshe Weinberger, by the way, in his thing, he really understood that. That was my favorite part of his whole shmooze. And one of his talmidim asked him, like, listen, if you stay in the system, it eats you alive. And if you leave, then everyone, locks you out. Like, you can't get a shidduch anymore, and you're a horrible person, and blah, 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 right? How do you get out of the problem? And Moshe Weinberger says, so some people, the way they get out of the problem is they commit suicide. Oh, right. You mean like a healthy way to get out of the problem? Like he chaps it. Like that's what he said. It was obviously a joke, but he chaps that people are so. I've had people like you're yelling at a kid not to commit suicide. Like what? Like ask him why he wants to and try to help fix the problems. You know what I'm saying? Like. It's funny to me when I think of the Kabbalistic concept of Mibisari Echza Aloka. Familiar with that? From my body, I'll understand the Rebbeinu Shalom. Right? So in the body, what happens when something hurts? When a piece of it hurts, we try to understand what's wrong with that. Right? My leg hurts. What happened to my leg? What's wrong with my leg? We don't get mad at the leg. We don't yell at the leg. We don't get angry. Right? We're like, what's going on? What's the problem here? Because obviously there's a deeper problem that you're experiencing pain from. The pain is just letting you know that there's a problem here. And I was like, halavai, when we saw pain, we should try to understand there's a deeper problem here. But instead we don't even experience it as pain. We just, the system just kind of gets angry at it and then says, yeah, let's cut it out. Let's cut off the leg. Not from anymore. Kick him out. Whatever. Kick him out of yeshiva. Kick him out of the system. Make sure he never gets a shidduch. Right?
Yitzy, we're gonna have to do another podcast on this topic. I've so much to say. It's just not enough time.
Okay, I'm looking forward. Maybe we should leave it there then, and then we'll pick up next time.
Right, we'll pick it up. Yeah, to be continued. We'll start with the system. But it's geulah. That's it. We're in geulah.
We're going to Yerushalayim to build a Beis Hamikdash.
Oh yeah.
For bringing all day long.
Make your way towards the gate. We're heading towards geulah.